And welcome once again. I'm the database guy. I'm glad you're joining me. Please like and subscribe as always. We are at video number 8 in presentation 7 on forms. And this is going to be an interesting one because we're going to kind of recap some of the things we've done here. Now, this is our main form, and as you can see, I've added one other book. Um, well, basically on this form, we can create a new uh, book. Actually, let me delete one that's in there. Table books. We're going to get rid of this guy right here. There's no authors associated with it, so we're not really worried about it. You can see we're going to shift F9, the magic number, to requery. But again, in Visual Basic Code, you will learn that. So we're going to create one here. Um, and L, we're going to call that one. We're calling this the 20,000. C. Uh, and I don't know, we'll put publish for 4 here, which is fine. And we're not going to add an author right now, but what we're going to do here, go to our queries. Now, again, in your developing, you will have it automatically saving as you're adding or making changes, so nothing is lost. And those are going to be in a portion when we do the VBA coding. Probably will do it for an add button. Otherwise, it will do nothing. Um, and once the user wants to commit that add, there's a series of steps and so on. But anyway, here, let's make sure it's in our temp table, first of all. We don't see it there, right? In our book's temp table. So we're going to Control S that. Make sure we get it in there. Save it. Control S is the magic number. There it is. So we're going to come back here to our query. And I want to get you to understand, we're going to then add the book. This is the one that adds it to the main table. And then we're going to delete the book from the temp table. Yes, we're going to Shift F9. Let's see if we get it right up here. And we just deleted it there, and there it goes. Now, we didn't add any author to it. So the other part of this whole concept is if we're selecting a record here, you see I have no authors here, I do. I would want to then edit this record. Now, when I would do this, when I would edit the record, not only would I bring in the book information, but I'd bring in the author information as well. You're editing the whole thing. You want to do it in one step. You do not want to leave anything out, per se. And you want to leave it in edit. Now, there's a possibility you may want to add another author. That's a whole nother process, but again, it can be done. So here, let us now go to the edit author query. We're going to hit yes. We're not appending any rows. Let's see. See why. Um, hmm. Could be because we have no authors. No. Um, wow. So let me just go back for a minute and okay. Okay. I think it's because we have no. Let us go to the query. Oh, that's edit author, not edit book. I'm sorry. I was pressing the edit book instead of the edit author. Rather, edit author instead of edit book. So let's go here again. We should see one, and we do. All right, yeah. I'm hitting the wrong query, by the way. Good, we're in there. We shift and we F9, hitting the wrong one. There we go. Now, we now have this in here, all right? we come over to the author, and let's select 3 different ones. Doesn't matter who they are. Let's also see what would happen if we created an author here. Isn't in the list. So in other words, we would have to have something here to add things to a list as well. And you'll see how that works with code. So I'm just going to escape this here and let's see, put in a third one. Doesn't matter who it is. Okay. And Control S to save it. And we'll do it again. Now, let us go back to our books temp and we see there's 20,000 leagues under the sea and the authors. And I've got 3 of them there and I have my ISBNs there. So if I were to attempt to, and we can update the book. We did that. And let's look at the update query for the book. Now, it looks for the ISBN in the temp table and it matches it to a unique ISBN in the books table. When it does that, it updates every other field with everything that's in the temp table. Not a problem, right? Yeah. But what happens here? So here's a problem. And in the scope, 1-to-1, a unique to a unique is fine. But remember, the ISBN in this table is not unique. See what happens if we right click and go into data view. We're seeing nothing on here. So let's go and just go back into our authors tab here. We see the 3 of them are there. So let's go into our query. And the challenge you have here, now if we look here, right, we've specified that we are looking at the ISBN based upon what is in the main ISBN. And that is what we see for the ISBN titles, year, publisher, that little form there, that main form. And then we're looking at the AID here, and we're saying, look at the CBO author field. And the problem with this one here is that we're no longer a one-to-one anymore. Let's try something. We're going to go to a different, and this is what is a join. There's right and left joins. We're doing a join where both are equal. So this is include all records from table authors, DET temp, and only those books authors where the join fields are equal. Let's see what we see from that one. We see nothing. And let's try going the other way. We see nothing as well. All right, so let's take this out for a minute. Let's just see something. It could be pointing to this and not. All right. Must have at least one destination field, so we need to have that. So let's put it back in. Let's take this one out for a minute. All right. Okay. Wow. Now what is going on here? 310, 3, 11, 3, 5. Looks like what it's doing is, let's see here. Let's go and change it the other direction here. All right, nothing. All right, it's not showing anything. And then let's show it where they're equal. Go back to the original. So the point of this here is that I'm going to close this and not do anything. No, we're not going to save it. Let's create a query and let's take a look at something to understand this better. So if I were bringing in this, just look at the fields in a select query. All right, you would expect to see what I would expect to see here, right? But then if we try to even add this, and if we do it by ISBN, nothing, right? Because it sees nothing in books authors. There is no authors in there. There's nothing there, right? And even if I change the link, go to this. All right, now we're seeing something interesting here. All right, the three that we have, let's go and take a look at them, are 1, 10, and 11. I'm seeing 10, 10, and 11. So why would I see that? Well, it's matching up the two that it finds. Let's see what happens on a left join. Now we have 1, 10, and 11. Let's take a look at what we have here, 1, 10, and 11, and we're getting a second one. All right, we're getting duplicates. So the question is why? Well, you have more than one entry, right? Well, you have 3 authors and nothing in the original table. It's blank. Okay. So if you hadn't added it, to add it to it, you should be able to do it, but you need to do it by code, not here. So, and we're not going to do that now. But let's go in the opposite direction to a, well, that was a right join. This is a left join. Let's see what we get. Wow. Now it's looking at what's missing, right? So the closest we came with was the right join, which gave us almost what we needed. All right, now we could do this, right? That'll give us everything we need, but here's what happens. When we go to an update query, all right, and then we place in, let's go to my query and my other one here. Yeah. So if I place this one in, and see what happens without even assigning that. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let us see what happens if I'm probably going to get one entry here. And the reason is because it's going to look at only one field, one control. So let's see what happens. Data type mismatch in expression. Let's see. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. This is not. Oh, yeah, I didn't put the right one in. So, this shouldn't be an update. This should be a criteria. Let's see what happens. Has to have a destination field, right? So let's look here. We don't have one that, okay. We have to update to something, right? So there we go. All right. I don't think this is going to work at all, but we have 11, 10, 10, and 1. All right, so what's going on here? Why on earth am I getting this as a multiple, which would be really the question? Um, and if we ran it, what would happen? Let's just see what would happen. We're going to call this query 1. We're not going to do anything with it. Let's see what happens. We're going to run it. Yeah, okay, 4 rows. Now, let us see in our table. This is not going to be right. Uh, if it even updated it, let's see. Um, let's also delete book new. Yep, yep. Get rid of that. It's deleting, so F9. All right, let's do the F9 on this one too. Oh, we need to delete yeah, this here as well. 3 rows are gone, right. So I'm gonna get rid of that too. All right. So let's see what happened. Did anything get copied? No, it didn't. And I didn't expect it to either. All right, because and this is what we call scope. Um, yeah, it's not in there. That's table authors. I'm sorry, table book authors. There we go. So we're looking for, and it's not even here. So here's the thing. Let's go back to that query again. This one here. Why didn't it work? Well, here, all right, it's looking at table book authors and saying what's not in table book authors that's in the temp table. And it found 3 entries. And the problem is there's nothing to update because there's no data there to begin with. All right, there's none. You really need to have an append query for that. But what you could do, really, realistically, is if you had no authors, if you look to find authors with VBA code and you see nothing, right? So you would basically open up a record set and look for anything with the ISBN in that table. And if it didn't exist, then you would run the append query. All right. So going back, right? Going back, and let's do it one more time. Right? We're on this one here. We're going to edit that one. Yeah, good enough. All right. We're going to then Shift F9. Beautiful. All right, we're going to add some authors. And Control S. Now, let's check that table to make sure they're there. And they are. So now, in this case, in this particular case, you have 2 cases. One, where you could create a book and don't put any authors in, and then come back and put them in. And what you do is you do a check with your code to see if there's anything there. If it's not, and then what you would do, which you would be add the authors here, right? You're appending 3 rows. You're going to delete the authors. And you're going to delete the book. And just deleted it out. And we're going to Shift F9 on that. And wow, there we go. All 3 of them went in. So you find that if I select a book, you would think it would be editing it, but you're actually adding it. So what you have to keep in your mind and scope here is, what am I doing? What's the process by which I'm doing this, right? And I can set up a flow chart too. So if I'm editing a book, but I have no authors, I'm really adding authors to the book. I'm not editing them, all right? I'm not doing that. On the other side of it, if I am editing a book and I'm editing the authors, which is completely conceivable, right? So let's see how that will work. So we edit the book and we edit the authors. Well, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, and then we Shift F9. They're all there, but here's the catch. I can't, and here's where you have to look at scope now when you're editing authors, right? And this is where query one, we're going to delete this right now. What was query one comes into play. Let's you know what? Let's look at what it would look like. You can see here we got a whole bunch of garbage here. Um, let's see. Let's do it where they're equal. All right. So here's what's happening. 3, 6, 7, 8. Um, you have 3 authors, and let's see. The information you're getting. Let's go and look at. By the way, 1, 3, and 5. I just want to make sure you know those numbers. So we have 1, we have 3, and 5. We have 1 once, we have 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and we have 5 twice. So why would we have that? Why would we, wait a minute, let me just see. Why would we have that? Um, what it's doing is, it is running same thing here. Let's go the other way. Whoops, sorry. And by the way, you'll see, say left join, right join. Yeah, we're in a right join here. You'll see where it does that in SQL. So it's the same thing. It's just, you know, it's not picking up the data the way we want to. In fact, it's what we call crossing the data, right? So it sees 3 pieces of data in one table. It sees 3 pieces of data in another table. And it begins to cross that data such that we're not getting unique values for it. We're getting multiples of it. I want to show you something. What if we had no join on this? Let's see what it would do. It crosses them like crazy. Let's see how many we have here. 36. All right, so it's taking every entry in the books. Let's see, in the books table, just to get you to understand what it's doing. In the books table, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? I have 8 entries there, and I have in the author's tab 3. All right, so it's running crosses such that it's getting a total of 36. Let's see what would happen if I do it by author ID. Same kind of thing, right? And I think ISBN was the same as well, but let's see how it is. Yeah, even worse with this one. 3, we got 3, 6. All right, so here, now with this way, with ISBN, is it ISBN? Yeah. It's taking 3 entries on each side and it's crossing them to get 9. And there's no way to take those entries and to um, group them. You can't group with an update query. You can't do it. All right. And if I do this, if I were to run this, let's see what would happen. So you can see it. Let's go to queries again. Let's go to this one again. Let's make sure, is it query one? Hang on a minute. I'll make sure I have the right one. Yeah, it is. Well, let's run that and see what happens. is you're about to update 9 rows. So let's see what it does. Now, let's go into our table book authors, and let's see. Actually here, believe it or not, even though it was going to update 9, it only updated to 3. So, and whoa, looks like everybody is Herman Melville here. Well, let's see something here. Let's go queries again. And let's delete this. And let's delete the book. And so let us shift F9 and see. All right, so let's now try to do this one more time. I don't care for it, but let's see if it'll work. Now we're going to edit the book, shift F9, and we're going to also edit the author. Because what I want to do here is change an author. Control S it. Now let's look at query 1. All right, so here now, 113311. Let's see if I got the right ones. What it's going to do is it's going to update those rows in triplicate. In other words, whoa, sorry about that. Type. Yeah, 1, 3, and 11. All right, so let's run query 1. Okay. And then let's delete our book new. Let's delete our book authors. Let's shift F9 and shift here F9. And let's see if it changed it. Okay, I think it did. Let's go back to our should be 1311. Let me just check the authors. Um, let's do an append and let's just check. I don't think it worked right, and it shouldn't. It probably shouldn't because uh, um, all right. All right. Let's take a look at our temp table. Yeah, it's there, 135. Let's see what happens. All right. Go back to our temp table. 1311. All right. All right. So let's see what happens if we run it. Query 1. All right. And then what we're going to do is get rid of this first and then this one next. All right. So, and you notice Hawthorne stayed. You notice it stayed. All right. So it actually didn't change it. It didn't change it at all. So I don't expect it to anyway, but here's the scope on this. There's no easy way because you're dealing with non-unique data, right? The ISBN in this case isn't unique. In fact, that ISBN could be for several authors in there. So how are you going to do that? How are we going to get that to edit? We can't do this in the normal sense because even though it says, and now I'm not going to see anything here because there's nothing on my temp table, even though it says that I'm going to update those fields, you can't update them. You just don't do it. What you would do would be you'd use Visual Basic Code. You'd look at your temp table, right? You would also look at your main table. You'd have two record sets. We call them record sets. You'll learn what they are slowly but surely. All right. You will open the first record set, which is your main table, and you will locate or do a find first um, the record where the ISBN is equal to the ISBN in the temp table. Once you find that, you'll look at the author ID and you'll update it. Then you'll cycle again and go to the next spot or find next after that one, let's say, until you get through every record in that table. So, and you'll update them. You can only do it by code. The reasoning behind this is that either I will have to do it via the main table, which is also a possibility. Okay, I could always do that, right? I could always come in here, bring these records up. Let's go into it again. Right here. Nope, sorry. Right, I could always go in here and run a query and find, right? And in this case, let's go to queries and let's delete query one. All right, and let us go to create a query. And I would first, and this again, you're not doing any update right now, but you will bring in, all right, let's do it for the main table here, right? And here, where the criteria is going to be equal to, I have the form open behind me, yeah, do, okay. DE main, and I need a text for ISBN, not that one. There it is. Okay. So if I do this now, I'm going to see everything, and I am. All right. But what I would do in this case, so I'm just going to minimize this for a minute. I'm going to run the query for this one, edit the book. Fine. And shift and F9. There we go. All right. What I'm going to then do is change this in here. All right. Let's see. Criteria, build. And I should get it to this one here. Well, let's see. I should only see 3. And I do. There's my 3. Now, The point of this is that what you would do would be, this is a query you would create, and in code, you would take that query, all right, and you would parse through it. So you would look for the ISBN number in the main table. When you find it, all right, um, or you could do two queries. You don't have to have even a table. So one query could be for the temp table, the other query could be for the main table. And you would just, and in that case, you would have, and that's even the best way to do it, because I would have 3 and 3, right? And what I would do is I would go through each record. I would make sure, first of all, that I had records there. If I didn't have any, I'd exit, but I should have them. If I have them there, I go to the first record. I then look at the author ID, and I then update it to whatever's in my temp table. And then I move to the next record. And basically, it's an RS edit, which is a record set edit. It is a set it equal to whatever's in my temp table, and then an RS update. Go to the next record, do the same till I get to the end of the record set. That's how I would do it. So that I could update as much as I so desired, right? So what have we learned here today? First thing we've learned here is if we create a book and we have no authors associated with it, we could do that. When we go to update that book, when we hit and there are no authors to it, okay, we're going to see that. All right, so when we go to, it's going to basically have an add author capability. So we're going to see none in there when we refresh it. And the add author button will be available, or we'll just add them. It won't matter. We'll add them. We want to go save them. That's probably the really way to do it, in my opinion. I wouldn't even have an add button just to save. Well, what I would do is I would allow the form where the authors is. I would have a button to allow you to add an author. And if there is nothing, okay, then you would have to click add. And that's probably what would happen. It would look at the record set when it opened, record set when you go to edit. So you would edit this record here. Upon doing this, it will check the record set for the authors. If there are authors there, it'll flash and update the data here, right? It'll do the append, it'll flash and it'll update, but if there are none, there are no authors for that particular book, then it'll put it into a mode of add author, all right? And you'll be able to add what you want. And then when you hit save, that's when it will append all of that and save it. If there are authors there, it'll find that. Then it's going to go to the next loop, which it will say, or a next branch, where it will say, okay, we found authors. Let's append them for edit, which we'll do that with the append DE edit author. We'll bring them in there, and then you'll make your changes to the temp table and save everything. And then you'll run through all of that code to update all of your authors. So the takeaways are the following. When you have one record, I'm going to say, yeah, leave it. When you have one record, there's no issue with appending that record because it has a unique ID. In the case of the book, it'll always have a unique ID. It has to, right? It has to. And by the way, when we have our code in here, we're going to check to make sure that ISBN does not exist. If it does, we're going to undo that and say, sorry, you can't enter that ISBN. We need to have a validation of a unique number there. Title doesn't matter so much. We can flash a warning to the end user, say, hey, we found that title. Are you sure you want to enter it? You know, again, you'll see it here in this sheet here. right? So if I tried to add 20,000 leagues under sea, I could do it again if I wanted to. It wouldn't be a harmful thing. Year is the same thing, and publisher, it shouldn't matter either, right? Um, let's delete the book new. So um, what we're learning here, slowly but surely, is that something called scope, as I said. The scope of one record being updated is because it's got a unique identifier, but when you have multiple records, and we have a setup like this one, let's see if I have my relationships here, right, where I have books authors, where I can have many ISBNs of the same number and many author IDs of the same number. I no longer have unique data, okay? And that changes your database such that you have to be sure that if you're dealing with data that is replicate data, all right, you're not going to be able to do this. At least I don't have a way to showing you that I can do it because it's not possible. You have to loop through all the records to update them or running the update query. Because the update query, by the way, um, let's go to it to close this out. Let's go to the book. The update query, by the way, specifies that one, you have to have a table for which the data is coming from, right? Or to be updated. In this case, it's the books table, it's the main table. So that's where the data is going to be updated. And then you have to have the source of what you're going to update it with. That's the temp table. Now, this always works. It works well. Um, so as you see here, I'm looking for my ISBN, but I only have one. I couldn't do this with authors because I have more than one. I could have 1, 2, 3, 5. If I had one, no problem, it will work. But if I have more than one, it won't work. And that's where it becomes a problem. Um, and again, this is because that table, let's look at it, does not have a primary key. Now, you might ask, well, what if I set a primary key in that table? Mm, You know what? I'll address that in my next video. The answer there is, yeah, I could. However, what I would have to do, right, if I address the primary key in that table and I set a primary key and I run through it, I have nothing to point to it. I'd have to have some sort of foreign key somewhere else. I don't have that. I could address this in my next video, but I think it's going to fail just as miserably because the primary key tells you nothing about the data other than it's a locator for the data, right? Um, so in books authors, I have this ISBN and the AID. Now, I can't set a primary key in the temp table, but I could set it in the main table. All right. And I could copy that primary key over to my temp table. That's a way of doing it. And so I have a unique identifier. So what happens is instead of bringing my ISBN, I'll bring that as well into my temp table. I'm going to also bring in that identifier that is a primary key. What I'm going to do is I'm going to locate not the ISBN, but the primary unique identifier. Then it would work. So I think I'm going to tell you right now. I can show it to you, and we'll show it to you in the next video. That is possible, but here's the takeaway from that. It's more work than you need. It's more work than you need because, um, it, it just is going to make it not complicated. It'll work, but it's an extra step, right? So, and anyway, when I'm doing this with code, as I said, I create those queries, the queries for the records in my temp table and in my main table, all right? Um, when I do that, Okay. I am going to have the same number of records, right? So if I have 3 authors or 5 authors or 1 author or 2 authors in my main table that I want to edit, I'm going to have 2 in my temp table or 3 or whatever it is. They're going to match. And that's going to work fine because that's really how you want to do it, right? You want to take that and parse through them and update them. It's the easiest way to go about doing it. But I can't show it to you. And I don't know, as I say, the other thing about it is you now have an extra piece of data in your authors table, books authors table. And that can complicate things. It really can. What I'm going to tell you about it is that having that extra or having that primary key doesn't really do anything for you. This kind of a table is meant to be create the many to many. But I'll show it to you in the next video and you can see how it works. Because again, we're going back to what we had for our books where we had a unique identifier, right? So if I have a unique identifier in my table books author and I copy that over into table books author temp, when I look for it and I connect to it, I make the change based on that number. So I only have a one-to-one, not a one-to-many, or a many-to-many, really, to be realistic. But anyway, this is the limitation. This is your first introduction to scope, meaning that I have to understand what the limitations are of doing things in Access. So for an append query, I can append as many pieces of data that I want. All right. In the scope of that, I need to append it only once. If I append it multiple times, I'm going to, right? And then you have to have a check to see, does the data you're going to append exist? You could do that too, but you should only append it once, then you delete it, and then it's gone. So, in that kind of a flow chart, right? For new books, whatever's in my table, 1, 2, 10, I can append them all I want. I'm going to check to make sure the ISBN doesn't exist, but I can append as many as I want. I'm only going to do one at a time in practice, in real practice. Um, but it is possible to do multiples too. And you can create that capability even in here, right? If you want to say append multiples and go to town with it, and you can do that. Open up another form and do it. But you wouldn't be adding authors immediately. And then the other side of it too is we learned if I add a book and I don't have any authors to that book, all right, it's not an edit function to get authors in there. It's an append or an add authors function, right? So you have to recognize and do a check to see that there are no records there or how many records are there. If there are any records greater than 0, it's an edit. If there are no records, it's going to be an add, right? All right. So, and then of course, editing the multiple records like authors where we have non-unique identifiers like ISBN. You can't do it because you don't have something to point directly to a specified record as you did with books. And that's really it for today. When we get back in the next video, you know what? I want to show you how it's possible, but it's more work than you need. And as I said, that is something that can be done, and certainly, if you want to approach it from that way, that's fine. But really, when you're doing all of these running these queries, you want to run code. The code will run things, and you'll see how beautiful it is. You really see it's wonderful. So we're here right now, and this book's data entry form, we have a couple of things we have to add, right? We're going to try to do it manually, running queries to add or edit multiple authors. We're going to also see if we can do multiple books at one point in time, just adding many books, and so on. So, and of course, as I said, none of these keys are coded yet because we haven't done any Visual Basic code. All right. let's see where we stand now. So we are still in forms. We haven't even hit reports yet. Once we finish with reports, then we begin the deep dive to Visual Basic, but this is going to take some time. We haven't even finished really forms so much. And there's one more point of the forms too, which I want to get to show you manually how it's possible to add an author to this list. Now, as you saw before, if I tried to, it would say, sorry, you can't, because the limit to the list has been set to yes. But you really want to be careful. And coding is the best way to do this because you can add something, you can check to see if it exists, and you can check to make sure its case is correct, that you don't already have it, or uh, it's not misspelled or something like that. It's possible too, uh, because you really do want to add authors to this, and then when you add that author using a what's called not in list procedure, you will then requery the whole combo box to add the author to that combo box as well, and you'll go from there. Um, but code is what's going to make this fully functional. You find that if you don't have code, you're going into the tables to do things, and you don't want to do that. All right, so anyway, please like and subscribe. I hope this has been helpful. Stay with me. We get back, we're going to show you this, what I've talked about here, the manual work and how to make multiple edits a reality. All right, so wherever you are, have a good day, good evening, good night, and take care.